It is Monday, the 25th of March, 2019, and this is the MMA Hour. My name is Luke Thomas. Thank you so much for joining. I greatly appreciate it. Boy, we had a packed show today, y'all. Wow. Let's see. Wonder Boy's going to be here in about 20 minutes to talk about everything that happened in Nashville. I appreciate his time. Maycee Barber will be here to talk about her big win, also in Nashville. Kevin Lee is jumping up to welterweight, so we'll discuss that with him. And then Jack Marshman had a nice win at UFC London, but there was some issues with the weight cut, with the military stuff, so we'll talk to him about 120 or so. Plus, you're going to be my guest not one but two different ways. Number one, with your tweets, using the hashtag #TheMMAHour. We'll get to those a little bit later. Plus, as always on the sound off, with your calls, 844-866-2468. Happy Monday to you guys. Hope you're doing well. Real quickly, a listener made this for me. There's no way to zoom in, I don't think. I can take this out. This is from a gentleman whose company goes by the name of Shadow Rabbit. You can see he made a clay. Oh, no. My hand fell apart. Oh, no. Well, he did make a claymation doll, and I think it got roughed up in the mail. We'll fix it. Nevertheless, he made a little metal stand for it, and it all works in there. So we got to get the hand fixed. But other than that, it's pretty cool. Shadow Rabbit. Sorry, Shadow Rabbit, that the first time I pulled out the case, I busted up, but I'll fix that here in just a minute. So big thanks to them. All right, we have to change things up today. Got to do things a little bit differently because of the way the show is structured. So normally I do the Monday Morning Analyst. Today we're not. Let's jump right into it. We'll do the Monday Morning Analyst just a little bit later. Right now, let's start things off with the sound off. All right, there he is, Danny Segura. All right, Danny, let's pile through these as fast as we can. We might have some time later in the show, depending on how things go, to get more calls in, but let's assume that for the moment we don't. We got to jump right through these. You doing well, my friend?
Yeah. Good weekend.
Very good. Glad to hear it.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. A lot of things happening everywhere, but especially in the bantamweight division, so let's discuss that.
All right.
Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Bobby from Providence, Rhode Island. My question is, with this TJ Dillashaw news, do you think this taints his legacy? Do you think maybe it was just something to cut weight to make it down to that lower weight class? Do you think he's been doing stuff all the time, like Cody Garbrandt's saying? I'm not going to lie, guys. This really sucked when I found out his news.
Okay. Apparently he's calling for the middle of a monsoon, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, or he's just an extreme mouth breather, you know?
He is an extreme mouth breather. That is that opportunity as well. All right, so you go first on this one, since this is a topic that I know you probably have a lot to say on. What do you say?
Yeah, well, this is a very unfortunate situation for TJ Dillashaw. We still don't know what he popped for, so I kind of have to reserve some judgment because of that, because we don't have the full truth, obviously. Mm-hmm. But we do know he's going to be at least out for a year because he was suspended by the New York State Athletic Commission for a year. We still don't know what USADA is going to give him. But, man, I kind of felt like TJ Dillashaw was finally coming into his own. And I know he was coming off a loss, but, like, I don't know if you remember when he was out of the title picture and he was also trying to unionize. Him and the UFC kind of weren't seeing eye to eye, and I felt like with the Cejudo fight, with everything going on in bantamweight, all that was kind of fading away, and he was kind of entering this era where he was going to define himself as one of the best bantamweights ever, one of the best pound-for-pound fighters ever. This is a huge setback for him. So, yeah, it's tough for TJ Dillashaw. I don't know what happened. My sense of things is, you know, there's that infamous photo now that we've all seen with him sitting down eating that salad, and he has like a million products in front of him. You know, I know that weight cut was not easy, and it was probably very scientific. They probably rely on a lot of supplements here and there to, you know, make up for some of the nutrition. And, you know, in the world of supplements, man, every time you take something, you're rolling the dice. So I think it has to do something with that.
Yeah, here's what I'm going to say. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what the answer is. When you have a job like this one, where you have a show and we're here to discuss topics, here's what any producer or program director will tell you. When you crack that mic, Luke, you got to have a firm position. You got to stick to it. You got to make it with all your heart. But here's the reality. We don't know anything. Other than USADA confirmed there was a positive test, an in-competition test. We know that. And we know that he got suspended by New York. Now, I find it highly unlikely that it's marijuana because I think if it is, he would have addressed it and he would have said something.
I
But
think so too.
but I can't rule that out because based on everything we know, that still qualifies. Look, it could be the worst case scenario.
But I don't think he would get suspended for a year.
Why?
For marijuana?
Why? Nick Diaz nearly got suspended for life by Nevada.
That's true.
And they dialed it back. Well, let's be reasonable. Let's only give him 5 years. These primates who have
Devil's lettuce.
the
man.
worst judgment on earth. So I don't know that. I mean, look, again, my hunch is that's probably not that, but I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what he took. I don't know what he got caught for. I don't know if it's a tainted supplement. I don't know if it's just straight up, steroids right in the veins. I have no idea. Dude, this is a serious issue that could badly, as you noted, affect his reputation. So here's my answer. Don't know. Gonna wait till there's more information. So there you go. By the way, we reached out to his management about talking to us. Hopefully they do.
Yep.
So there you go.
All right. Well, that leaves his division an interesting standpoint because Cejudo was supposed to come up and have that sort of fight with him. So let's talk about what goes next for that division.
I'm Parker calling from Houston, Texas. What's up, Luke? I was just wondering if you could give your insight on what you think about the UFC bantamweight title picture. We know that TJ Dillashaw was suspended by the New York State Athletic Commission last week, and he's going to be out for a year. So, you have guys like Marlon Moraes, Aljamain Sterling, Henry Cejudo, Pedro Munoz, and, you obviously need to make a title matchup so the vacant title can be.
This question goes for about another
minute.
minute. So thanks for calling, Parker. And
Shouts to
let's
Houston, Texas.
Yeah, shouts out to Houston.
Cool city.
I've been there. My aunt lives in the Woodlands, which is like the suburbs of Houston.
No, it's a cool place.
I've been there a couple times. It's nice. I
Nice
like
people.
it. Yeah. All right. So what do you do at bantamweight?
I hate this Cejudo Moraes fight.
Bro, me too.
I hate everything about it, bro.
too.
I hate it. I can't stand it. Now, am I here to tell you that it's going to be a bad fight, Danny? I have no idea what it's going to be like. It might end up being the best fight of the year. And is Henry Cejudo an amazing fighter? Of course.
Yep.
Is Marlon Moraes a deserved person in his position? There can be no doubt. He's the most important ingredient here, period.
Yes, he is for sure a guy that's going to be in that equation no matter what.
Yeah. But you were doing the Cejudo at the 135 thing because Dillashaw wanted to run it back.
Yes.
Dillashaw should have never been down at 125.
Yep.
It went disastrously for him, as we've all now seen, in addition to these other, insult to injury kinds of scenarios. Now he's out. The whole reason you were going to have him at 135 is ostensibly removed, and you're just going to do it.
Yes.
It's like I don't get that at all. By the way, they're both rep by the same manager, which which we've seen before because Carlos kind of fought Tyron Woodley, so it's not unheard of. But that's kind of weird. It's like I don't know, man. It's like I'm not telling you it's a bad fight, but Aljamain Sterling should be in that position 1,000%, even if it's not as sexy a fight or whatever.
Yeah. I actually think Pedro Munoz should be in that equation because Aljamain Sterling not so long ago lost to Marlon Moraes, and in you remember he got knocked out pretty bad.
Pretty bad.
I think what I'd like to do eventually, ideally, would be keep Cejudo at 125. I think, look, if you're gonna put that division down at some point, fine, do it. But at least squeeze some more title fights out of it. I think Joseph Benavidez is a deserving guy, a guy that has been a company guy since day one. He's done everything right. He's been a top contender for forever. He's got history with Cejudo, so make that fight happen. Now 135, I'd like to see. I know Moraes versus Pedro Munoz. I know that doesn't feel as big of a fight as the Cejudo fight, but that's just the way I would take things, and maybe do like a Peter Yan, Aljamain Sterling for number one contender or something.
I could live with that. What I can't live with is let's just unless you want Cejudo to move up because you're getting rid of flyweight. In that case, okay. But here's the other part about it. You just saw over the weekend Jussier Formiga, who was already the number one contender. Mm-hmm. He beat Devison Figueiredo. People are like, who's Devison Figueiredo? Oh, I'm sorry. You mean the guy who was undefeated and ranked 4th in that division heading into Nashville, who also now just lost? It's like, dude, what is
the guy that has the haircut of God of War?
I forgot about that. But it's like, dude, what does that guy got to do to get a title shot down there? I mean, we're just living in crazy land. So they're just going to do what they're going to do, but I hate both of those fights. Sorry, I do.
And you know what's funny? Dana White, I think after UFC Nashville, he was asked about the whole situation. I think he said, "Oh yeah, I think Joseph Benavidez fights Formiga for the number one contender, and if anybody drops out of the bantamweight title fight, then they'll fill in." But I'm like, wait, so are they fighting at 125 or 135?
Oh, it's
the whole situation's just a mess. that's why I think either you get rid of the division or you don't. You know what I'm saying? Like this weird limbo doesn't really work out. All right, now let's switch topics into something completely different.
Uh-oh. That usually is ominous.
Hey, Luke and Danny. This is Kenneth Audette from Chino, California. Really admire both of your work. Keep it up. So there's this stigma in our society regarding cannabis, medicinal cannabis, and even CBD. Anthony Pettis has started incorporating CBD gummies into his diet to aid in sleep and says it has been a game changer. And it got me thinking, lots of athletes and fighters have started realizing the benefits of CBD for lowering inflammation, relaxing muscles, etc. But are fighters overlooking the gigantic benefits of having proper sleep? Love to hear your thoughts, and hey, maybe some quality sleep a day or two out of the week could really help you out, Luke. Perhaps slow the graying that you got going and haven't enjoyed. Also, shout out to Mr. Seguda, favorite new Twitch streamer. Okay, take care, ladies and gents.
People act like I choose not to get sleep.
Like, would I rather get a good night of sleep tonight, or maybe
what is it
not?
you think I'm doing up there dancing in the street with raccoons and stray animals rather than trying to get a good night? I'm trying to get a good night's rest. It's just I live with an insane amount of anxiety and pressure, so I have to get up balls early to come here. So no.
Have you tried CBD?
Yeah, here's the thing with CBD. I have tried gummies. I've had no success. I've tried rubs. I've had no success. I've tried oils. I've had no success. Now, here's the deal with this, and there has been this is not up for debate. There really are no longitudinal studies that prove any of the benefits of CBD. What you do get are a lot of anecdotal stories. Hey, man, I tried it. It was a game changer. I'm not here to say that those people are wrong. They could very well be right. All I'm trying to say to folks is there isn't any, to date, scientific data that justifies even a tenth of these claims. Now, that's partly in the process of changing. There are studies now being done, so we'll see what they have to say. It might turn out that it works for a certain kind of person and doesn't work for another. Another problem is it's a totally unregulated marketplace, so you could have a friend that has a great company that makes super killer stuff, and it all works for you. Maybe I just keep buying the loser CBD. I don't know, but I have not had any success with it at all. But hey, man, if Anthony Pettis is getting better sleep at night because of CBD, dude, keep doing it. Yes, sleep is, they'll tell you this in any kind of bodybuilding form or even powerlifting or even weightlifting. The most important things are the kind of food you eat and obviously how much, hydration, how much sleep you get, and then at the very last is, supplementation. Yeah. But sleep, diet, and hydration, the most important things in fitness.
Yeah, for sure. I've tried CBD as well, the gummies and the oil, and I didn't feel anything.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe it did work, because I also know like it reduces inflammation and all that. Maybe it did work, and I just, I have a hard time picking it up.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel anything. Also, fun little story. Alexis Villa, you remember him?
Poor
right?
Alexis Villa, yeah.
He's been fighting for forever. Olympic wrestler.
Yeah.
And
crashed into an airport.
That's true. Yes. I asked him once after a fight. He was already deep into his 40s and like still, kicking ass. And I asked him, what's the key to like, be be in such a great shape at such a late age.
Being Cuban.
One being Cuban, yes, having those Cuban genes, man. And the other one, he told me sleep early. He was like, sleep early. He's like, by 9 p.m., I'm already like crashing.
He's absolutely right. Sleep is so important.
Sleep is so big.
But no, I mean, just so it's clear, I don't choose to not get sleep. I'm trying. I've cut out alcohol big time. It's just hard. It's hard, man.
Yeah, it's hard to get good sleep. All right, well, now let's talk about some of the action that happened over the weekend. Obviously, Anthony Pettis picking up a pretty important win for his career, but now his path is not too clear. Maybe 170, 155. So let's discuss that.
Hey, Luke, this is Matt calling from Boston. And just after what happened this weekend, Anthony Pettis now seems to have fight offers in 3 different divisions, but seems to be come and go wherever he ends up weight-wise. So I was just wondering where you would like to see Anthony Pettis land. If he had to pick one, what would your choice be? Thanks, and thank you for the show.
All right, so I don't know what the third weight class was, because I don't think he's ever doing 45.
Yeah,
again.
I mean, I guess he does have a top 10 win in each of those divisions.
Yeah.
But he's not, there's no beck and call back there. This is real simple. For now, look, you just beat the number 3, number 4 guy. There is no reason to get out of that division. See where it takes you. You never know. I do think he was losing that fight up until he was winning, which we'll talk about in the Monday Morning Analyst. But nevertheless, it's a great win. It's a killer win. No one's ever done that to Wonder Boy. You just got to say, If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now, there's some things to clean up, obviously. So look, see how it goes. Here's my theory about this, Danny. I asked a bunch of people to tell me every time someone has jumped up in weight, whether it went well or not went well. What you find, I don't have any hard data on this. This is, again, anecdotal, or at least incomplete.
Just observational. Yeah.
What I have noticed is it is very, not easy, but it is common. It is not uncommon for someone to jump up in weight and initially make a big splash.
Mm-hmm.
What it is hard for them to do is jump up in weight and have a sustained effort of success.
Yeah.
That's why you see these guys come up and wait for these champ fights and they just brutalize somebody. But then you see Cowboy, he went up to 170, looked great. But then you kind of run into some pretty clear dead ends at that point.
Yeah.
So then
he looked good for like 3-4 fights I think he picked up at welterweight.
It's not that he can't compete there. He's obviously competitive there, but it's hard to make the argument that's his best division.
Yeah.
So, like, Pettis might be competitive at 170. We'll have to see. My hunch is that eventually he's going to find his way back down to 155.
I see that situation kind of like in soccer when they bring, certain managers specialize in just, helping teams avoid relegation. And it's not really the fact that the manager is all that good. It's just the fact that there's change, period.
Yep.
And then, people, when there's change, people just react positively to that,
right.
For a little bit. So you bring in a guy for like 4 or 5 games just to avoid relegation and, they just managed to get a few points, but is really mainly just because of change, because they're, changing things around and they're not stuck doing the same thing.
That's right.
So it kind of reminds me of that situation. But look, I hated on this matchup when it was first announced. I mean, I made my thoughts pretty clear here on the show.
Mm-hmm.
But man, now that it happened, it was a pretty big gamble from Anthony Pettis. But man, what a great decision. Because look, things look pretty murky out at lightweight. You don't know how, the title picture is going to sort out. Kind of same at welterweight, but at least you got both options. So if one goes, worse than the other, you can just, stick to whatever division is a little bit more clear.
That's right.
I mean, it's safe to say he's a top 5 in each, technically, beating number 3, right? So
yeah,
pretty smart move.
Ride it out as long as you can, and then make a decision on how far it goes.
Also, there's plenty of lightweights that have moved up to 155, so technically you won't really have to fight like a legit, welterweight.
Yeah.
So there's that as well.
Right.
All right, let's take one more, and then I'll call Thompson.
Okay.
What's going on, guys? It's Ricardo from Toronto. So Pettis just made a statement, and in terms of matchmaking, the opportunities seem endless now. But I think the fight that most people, including myself, want to see is that Conor matchup. Conor tweeted after the fight, and obviously got people talking. They're both lightweights. They're both looking to return in July. Plus Conor isn't booked, and that Diaz trilogy isn't going anywhere. That can always happen. So what do you think? Conor, Masvidal, RDA, what makes the most sense for Pettis right now, guys? Thanks. Take care.
Who should Pettis fight next?
Any top welterweight in the top 5.
You don't like the Conor fight?
It's like people like Conor versus a gorilla. Who doesn't want to see? Everyone wants to see Conor fight in virtually any permutation. Yeah, of course. Do I think that's the best way for him to move forward in his career? No, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody at 155 is what he needs to be doing. But like a Pettis fight, would that be cool? Sure, dude. That'd be an amazing striking bout. But just thinking realistically about what's a good way to advance, no, it's not. That's not the best way for him to advance.
Yeah. I want to see Conor versus Nate Diaz. I think that whole thing needs to wrap up.
Agreed.
Fairly soon. So no, I wouldn't like to see Pettis versus Conor. For some reason, it just doesn't intrigue me all that much.
Yeah, look again. If you saw them across the cage from each other, you'd be like, "Wow, they're about to get it on."
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
No, again, it's the same thing with Cejudo and Moraes. When they're across the cage from each other, I'm going to be a little bit nervous because those are 2 amazing fighters.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we're doing right by the divisions and then the fighters inside those divisions. So there you go.
Cool.
But we're in the streaming era. All bets are off, Danny.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to leave you with one question. This is specifically for you, and then I'm going to get Mr. Thompson.
Sounds good.
Hey, Luke, this is Neil from Calgary, Canada. I'm just wondering about your analysis on your fights. I like them. They're great analysis. I'm just wondering if any fighters actually ever get upset at you for giving away their fight plan or game plan.
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah. That was the longest pause ever. Yeah, sometimes. I've had a couple messages about that. Typically not really. What you guys have to understand about the analysis that I do, which I really appreciate, I do think it sets me apart a little bit inside the media space relative to other media members, not so much obviously coaches, is that there's a certain kind of perspective that I bring that is different than how a coach might see it. And then 2, there's a lot of small details I don't get to, part because I don't see them, part because I don't have enough time. There could be a lot of missing pieces there that, a coach might look at what I'm doing and say, oh, I had the coach of a really famous fighter reach out and say I got like 90% of what they were doing correctly, but the 10% that I missed was pretty critical. So, what do you want to say? The reality is what I always tell you guys. I don't present it to you as the best analysis or the only analysis or even the complete analysis. I present it to you as mine. I give you like a big picture overview with some grasp of the details, and then we go from there. All right, let's go to this gentleman now. I really appreciate his time. I was even hesitant to bring him on because, you get these guys in a tough spot. You want to be respectful of their time. But I also wanted to talk to him. I just wanted to see how he was doing and check in. And so he is gracious enough to give us some of his time. We're joined now via the magic of Skype by the one and only Wonder Boy himself, Stephen Thompson. Hi, Stephen.
How you doing, my friend?
Good. How are you feeling, first of all?
I'm feeling good, man. Feeling good. A little bummed, but hey, man, it's the way the game goes sometimes. When you're in the game long enough, sometimes this stuff happens. So I'm feeling good, though.
So, by the way, just to medically get the final wrap up here, did you have to go to the hospital or anything? Or once you were in the back, doctors took a look at you and you were good to go?
Yeah, so I actually, they took me to the hospital, got some x-rays done of my left leg and a CT scan. So we were there till 3:30 a.m. in the morning before we got back up. We got back to the hotel around 4. So we're there for a little while. So everything's good, though. Brain's fine, foot's fine, no breaks, just a little banged up down there. So, but everything's good.
All right, so let me just say this, man. I know obviously Saturday didn't go your way, but to go that many fights in a game this dangerous and for that to never happen, kind of miraculous. Like on some level, I know the streak is over, but you do have to be proud of that streak, right?
I am, man. I'm in close to 80 fights and never been knocked out. Yeah. But it's crazy. It had to be this time. Like, why this time? We had a whole bunch of people there from our hometown celebrating, supporting me. But it is what it is, man. It happens. So the only thing I can do is get back on that ball and keep moving forward and go back to the drawing board.
Let's talk about the fight before the ending. Looked to me like you were winning. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, I think I was piecing him up. Especially with my jab. He threw a few leg kicks, nothing that really bothered me at the time. I remember the first round very well. I don't remember the second round very well. But I remember going back to the corner and having his blood, I'm looking down at me. I got his blood all over my chest. I'm looking at he's like leaking from his nose. So I'm like, man, did I break his nose? What's going on? I just remember saying, he's a tough guy. And then after that, kind of blank. I literally come to in the back. I see Chris Weidman. I see my mom. I see my brother. And I don't remember being out in the cage or walking to the back, taking pictures with everybody. I don't remember that at all.
Wow. What was the game plan heading in there? Again, it looked like you were executing it pretty well for what you remember, but what was the thought? Because there was a bit of a height disparity. I thought he was going to go a lot to the body, which I guess a little bit he did, but he went much more to the legs.
Yeah, I figured I didn't expect him to stand right there in front of me, right off the bat. I was going to go to him, get him backing up, but he actually met me in the middle, started coming at me, and he did throw a lot of leg kicks, but I remember thinking, his strikes or punches were kind of slow in the first round. Like, man, oh, this is good. This is not going to take long at all. That's what you get for thinking. But yeah, I felt like his hands were fairly slow. He did throw a lot of leg kicks out there, but the game plan was, to really pump the jab, get him backing up a little bit, and then look for the knockout from there. He did keep his hands up fairly high, which made that fairly difficult. So I started going to the body as well with my own body kicks. So to try and get him to drop those hands just a little bit. In the later rounds, I figured that those body shots would definitely wear his body out, him dropping his hands, and then the knockout would be a little bit easier. But we never made it to that point. So, I felt good about my performance, and I went back and watched the fight several times, especially the knockout. And I'm like, it seemed to me like I know I've been hit harder than that. I know Tyron's hit me harder than that. Why did this punch affect me the way it did? And the only thing I could think of was it just being right on the money, right on the spot. Sometimes that's all it takes.
Yeah, I actually went and I looked at every yesterday. My wife was real happy with me. I went and I looked at every time you've been knocked down in the UFC. And all the other times you got knocked down, it was a huge punch, like huge, like Tyron Woodley just loading up. Let me see what you think of my guess. My guess is that there was a slight delayed timing on it. And a Superman punch, as you know, often comes real linear. His was almost arcing like in this way. So between the delayed timing and the trajectory, I don't think you were expecting it. Fair?
Definitely fair. You definitely fair. Because I went back and watched. I threw a side kick that kind of glanced off of him and kind of put me in a bad position.
Right.
Where my right foot was fairly to the outside of him, which put me closer to him. And I know he was up against the cage, so all he had to do was lunge forward. And of course, when you're throwing a punch with your whole body behind it, it makes it that much more powerful. And the last, 3 or 4 inches is where the power comes from. So his whole body being behind it and throwing that straight punch right down the pipe, I think that's what did it. And it took me a while to actually figure it out and go back and watch it. Like, why? It didn't look like it was that much. Especially after Tyron putting me down and not putting me away. I'm sitting there thinking, why was that? But it doesn't have to take a gorilla of a punch to put you away. Just you put it right on the spot. That's all it takes.
Something else I noticed, I went back and I checked this with a fight metric for the Anthony Pettis. He targeted your head the least amount he's ever targeted an opponent in his career, and he targeted your legs more than he's ever targeted an opponent in his career. It was the opposite of what he basically always does. To what extent was that surprising?
I figured that he was going to try and keep the distance. I knew that being after me coming off from a knee injury from the fight before, he probably was going to go for the legs a little bit more. So, I mean, in our game plan, in our head, we figured that was going to happen. I didn't think that he was going to not throw as many punches to the head, but I figured he was going to target my legs more. So that kind of threw me off a little bit. He mostly kept his hands up. So maybe that was kind of smart because he knows I'm a counter striker. I've got the longer reach, and that I was going to try and counter him once he started throwing punches. And, I think it was smart on his part. He definitely kept his hands closer.
By the way, if things had kept going the way they were going, do you feel like you would have gotten the finish in the third? I know it's all at this point, speculation, but nevertheless, how were you feeling? Right. It was headed in that direction?
It was heading in a good direction. Yes, I believe so. I mean, that was only the second round, and we had 3 more rounds to go. So, the damage that I was doing, that I was causing to him, leads me to believe that I would be able to finish him. But I
know, man. I know it's kind of tough to talk about. So let me ask you this thing. Yesterday on Twitter, I put up a question to folks. I said, list for me all the times somebody like not just regional MMA, but high level MMA, where somebody jumped up in weight class and maybe it went well, maybe it didn't, but just list for me all of them. And I noticed something. I could be wrong about this. I just know from what I read, it is not easy. You can make a jump up in weight class and make a big splash. Making a sustained effort at that weight class, maybe not so much. But that one time, and you've seen it now with these champ fights, these guys come up one time and they just tear apart somebody out of nowhere. But then if they stick around the weight class, they run into some brick walls that somebody like you probably wouldn't, staying at welterweight. What do you make of that, if you think that's true?
You know what? I now that you said it, I kind of see it. Cowboy Cerrone made a huge splash. So did Masvidal. I mean, Michael Chiesa, his first fight up to 170, he submitted Carlos Condit.
Connor, Amanda Nunes, all these people.
Yeah, Connor, Amanda Nunes. There's a lot of people who has made that jump, and it may have to do with, I don't know, the weight cut, not having to cut that way, not depleting yourself. I think you may feel more confident in that situation, or that one time that you're moving up and you're not having to deplete yourself. It's just a good feeling. I'm not really sure why that is, but I can kind of see that now that I go back and I think about it. So yeah, man, I don't know. Everybody's been asking me, hey, do you want me to make that at 85? Whitaker's still the champ, I would. You never know, man. You never know. I'm not a big welterweight either. So I walk around about 185, 190. And a lot of these guys walk around over 200 pounds. Like Robert Whitaker, when he moved up, I mean, he's doing work, but he did. You know, he walked around at a heavy weight.
So, again, I know it's just Monday, but what are you thinking about for what this does for you in the welterweight division?
You know, I don't know, man. I got to go and look at the rankings, see where I'm at. But now I do know that rankings really don't matter at this point in the UFC's, you know, in the UFC. Yeah, you got a lot of guys who are still being bumped up and fighting champions at, you know, ranked number 5. And I don't know, man. I got to go back to the drawing board and see what happens. I know there's a fight in my hometown coming up in 3 months, and we're going to see how we feel in 2 weeks. I'm not going to push it at all. You know, after a knockout, especially one like that, I don't want to jump out there too soon. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me though, like look at what Pettis did, right? He kind of had some ups, had some downs, had some ups, had some downs, and got this weird offer to go up a weight class and just took it. It's like I've told folks, like the best way to get ahead in the rankings, even if you stay inside your own division, is to just take a fight late notice, because then they have to slot you in against somebody really good. And then another way to like rebound after a loss is sometimes to take a weird fight. I wonder how you feel about that.
Yeah, man. That is true. So, I mean, the first thing right now, obviously, before we start jumping into that, is to make sure, you know, it's the first time I've ever been knocked out. So I'm taking it super serious. You know?
Of course.
I'm still, it's like 12 o'clock and I'm still in the dark in my bedroom, you know, not on my phone, just kind of chilling here. So, you know, Dana White and those guys, they still want me to fight in 3 months, but you know, I want to take it slow. I want to make sure everything's right before I do that. So, you know, I got the best doctors looking at me. I got a lot of MMA fighters giving me some really good advice. So I appreciate them, you know, getting in contact with me and let me know what's going on. So everything's going to work out, man. And you have not seen the last of Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I guarantee you. This right here has definitely fired me up, man. It has put a flame in me that I think the last time I felt this way was when I tore my ACL like 10 years ago. So I'm itching the bits to get back to the gym and get back to the drawing board.
You know, you have to, you know this as well as I do. You're the competitor. I'm really the observer, but I have observed, dude, this is a rebound, second, third chapter sport if ever there was one. You just need that one right opportunity, boom, and you can hit the ground running. Look at the last 2 weeks. Jorge Masvidal has had a million ups and downs, and then kaboom. Same with Pettis, and then here we are. So, you know that as well as I do. There's a ton of opportunity for another chapter.
Oh, definitely, 100%. And you know, looking at Pettis and those guys, they're actually giving me the confidence to, you know, to keep pushing forward, man, to keep that grind going. And a lot of these fighters, you know, Diego Sanchez hit me up on Instagram, letting me know his story and how his ups and downs, and how, you know, you saw his last fight, which was phenomenal. And he said he's been in my situation, man, and just keep moving forward and stay positive. And I'm taking these guys' advice.
You still there? We got you? Yeah, there he is. Okay. Thought we lost you there for a second.
Oh, yeah, did I go off?
No, you trailed out for a second, but it's all good. So let me just ask you this last one. We'll let you go because I really appreciate your time and I don't want to take up any more of it. Looking back on it, I want to ask this as politely as I can. I'll ask it plainly. Do you regret taking the fight?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, Anthony Pettis is one of the best strikers, best fighters in the UFC. And that's why I'm here. You know, I'm not in it for the money. That's all. That's a bonus. I'm in it for the honor and the glory and to face the best fighters in the world. And he got a big name, got a big following, and I've been a fan of his for a long time anyway. And, you know, we've been chatting back and forth the past few days, just, you know, wishing each other luck in our career. So, yeah, man, I don't regret it one bit. Not at all.
Well, let me just tell you this while we let you go. I know on these shows like this, the common thing is to bring on all the winners after a Saturday. But, you know, look, man, you're a class act. You're going to be back. And I just felt like it was important for the public to hear from you. Obviously, it requires your compliance. You know, I can't I can't make you do it, but I'm glad that you got a chance to speak. And, man, look, it's a setback, but as I mentioned before, you know as well as I do, this is the sport of rebounds, if ever there was one. So I want to thank you for your time. Get some rest, and I can't wait to see the next version you got for us.
Hey, I appreciate you calling, man, and it's definitely a pleasure being on with you. And don't worry, like I said, you haven't seen the last of me, and I will be back better and stronger than ever, guaranteed, man. I appreciate it, sir.
Can't wait. Get some rest, Stephen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye.
There he goes. All right. I appreciate that. I struggled with whether or not to bring him on because you want to give these guys their space, but I also wanted the public to hear from them. So there we go. All right. Speaking of hearing from others, now is my turn to hear from you. It is time for a round of tweets. All right, let's do it. 5 minutes on the clock, and then we will get to your tweets. Let's see. There's the timer. Show me them tweets. All right, here we go. Hit it. All right, Wonder Boy is contemplating making the jump to 185 pounds. Yay or nay? I think what I would say is, certainly after speaking to him, let's wait a second. I would say it's probably okay with the right matchup. Maybe not a huge middleweight, because as you noted, he walks around 185, 190. Folks, I know lightweights that walk around at 185, 190. I know lightweights that walk around heavier than 190. So not saying no, just saying let's see how things shake out for his ranking position. Let's see what that 185-pound fight is and see which one makes the most sense. Next. What do you believe is the bigger factor for the KO in the Pettis Wonder Boy fight? Is it a product of the non-weight cutting fighter retaining power by not depleting themselves, or the weight cutting fighter dehydrating the brain, causing them to be more susceptible to a KO? No, I don't think it's got anything to do with it. He might have had more power. I'm going to show you why. I'm going to show you why in the Monday Morning Analyst that was the case. Basically, it was... I looked at every scenario where Wonder Boy has been knocked down in the UFC and what the commonalities are, and this situation fit all of those to basically a T. It was a moment where Wonder Boy operates under a set of conditions where he has success when those are established. If you can take away usually two or more of them, then you can land some pretty significant shots. I think Anthony Pettis had 3 taken away. I will show you that later. Next. Out of the following 3, which matchup would intrigue you the most for Anthony Pettis? 1, Cowboy Cerrone at 155. They've already fought, so no. Conor McGregor at 155, maybe. Robbie Lawler at 170. Definitely McGregor in that case because Lawler's too big, and he already fought Cowboy. So I guess Conor if those are the 3 options. Next. Luke, can you please unblock me? Yeah, maybe. Danny, make sure you hit me up about this later. I'll unblock him. All right, next. Here's the thing about blocking people. I just want folks to know. Some of y'all like drinking water out of the tap. Some of y'all like drinking water out of the garden hose. I prefer to drink water through a filter. All right. Do you agree with Chael that in striking, the smaller guy has the advantage? Well, I would need to hear exactly what Chael says. There can be a lot of scenarios where the smaller guy has an advantage, but if it's speed and with those little gloves, and if they're not cutting weight as much, you can well see that there is a ton that they can do in terms of making up the ground. The weight cutting really has more to do with somebody who's going to lean and lay and grip up on you versus someone who's going to strike. Because if you're primarily concerned about striking, you have to be fleet of foot, fast, quick, agile. You don't want to have your brain messed with too much. So you can imagine a scenario where, yes, you're smaller, but you don't have any of those other factors working against you. You can get some things done. Next. As a metalhead, do you pay proper respect to Metallica? Love the show. It sounds very cliche to be like everything after And Justice for All sucked, but everything after And Justice for All kind of sucked. Not everything, but most things. I actually appreciated more than anything their S&M album that they did with the San Francisco Orchestra. But, And Justice for All, Ride the Lightning, their debut album, Master of Puppets. These are, Kill 'Em All. These are the seminal pieces of work. Saint Anger, or even their last one, Death Magnetic, or whatever their last one was. I haven't even kept track. They're fine, but they're not great. Next. Don't you think Connor, that's not how you spell Connor, calling out every fighter after a fight's getting weird now? I think he's just keeping his name in the mix. I don't read too much into it. Next. Luke, I've heard you say many times that you don't watch fights as a fan anymore, which is true. What exactly do you mean by that? Are there any upcoming fights or potential matchups that excite you enough where you can watch and enjoy it as a fan? No, not really. Maybe Lamont Peterson, who retired yesterday, because he's a DC guy, I watch as a fan. I really watch MMA for it. Like, I want to see high-level action. But as a fan, you get invested. Sometimes you can watch as a fan like that. But I guess what I mean when I say a fan is I don't cheer for Tony Ferguson because I like him so much. I mean, I do like Tony, but when I watch him compete, I'm looking to see his skills. And I don't want bad things to happen to these guys, but I'm not there to root for the good either. I'm there to let that process play out naturally and then observe and then comment. I don't have like a rooting interest. I don't have a fighter t-shirt or anything like that. So I watch it a little bit differently. Let's get one more in. With CTE becoming a more prevalent concern, should there be cause for concern when fighters who have been KO'd receive 1 or 2 extra blows to the head once they're out? Yes, there should be plenty of concern, but I guess the bigger issue should be post-fight and pre-fight medical screening. That's really what we want out of this. We want just to put ourselves in the best position to handle those kinds of concerns. All right, do we have Maycee? What's the word on that? All right. Apparently we are waiting on one Maycee. All right. Everybody always hits me up once I go on the air. What is that all about? Like, no one, my phone is silent before the show. The minute I go on the air, just kind of crazy. In any event, yeah, this is one thing I've been talking about, like, even with my own, what do you call them, unorthodox views on performance-enhancing drug use. I think even if you agree with me, and I know many of you do not, here's one thing I think I could get you to agree with me on. Even if, let's say, the world changed tomorrow, and like Thanos, I could snap and have it how I wanted, I don't think you could change any rules in the direction that I want to change them without adopting more rigorous pre-fight screens and then as well post-fight screens. I think the bigger issue is not trying to manage advantages, but managing health. And even if you don't agree that we don't need to manage advantages, you probably could agree that we could always do a better job of managing health. I don't think we do as good of a job on that as we can. I think another thing that folks should consider is the UFC has been an active participant, as well as I think Bellator as well, but certainly I know the UFC has, with the Cleveland Clinic brain study. And no one really knows what they're going to find. Probably that nothing good happens when you get punched in the head. You can well imagine. But that's not what I mean. I guess what I would say is one of the benefits that MMA has over traditional stick and ball sports is that in the stick and ball sports, you'll start playing at a very young age, which is why they get better by the time they're in their 20s than a lot of MMA fighters, because you can't literally compete legally until you're certainly a pro license until you're 18. So here's my point about all this. There might come research that shows once you take enough damage and they can measure it, there should be no more fighting for you, period. That actually might be something that we have to contend with in the future, but a different thing for a different time. All right, is she on phone or Skype? What's the word? All right, let's do it now. We go back to Skype because we are joined by the future. The future is now, ladies and gentlemen. She had a big win at UFC Nashville over JJ Aldrich. Had a little adversity at front, but wound up winning in the end. Maycee Barber is here. Hi, Maycee.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing quite well. It doesn't even look like you were in a fist fight. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling great. Just a couple bumps and bruises, but I feel really good. Compared to the last fight, I actually got to walk and have my legs be feeling great.
What do you mean? Oh, because of the weight cut?
Yeah, a little bit of the weight cut, and then the fight before this one, I was battling with a little bit of a knee injury. So.
Oh, right.
Or I got one in the fight. So, no, this one I came out feeling pretty great.
All right, so give me a sense of things. What kind of grade would you give your performance?
I don't know. I mean, obviously there are mistakes that I made, but I'm happy with the way the performance went. I couldn't be more happy with it because, just like I told several people, I feel like I needed to show that side of me. The fact that I got dropped and the fact that I took a couple of hits. Obviously, that's not what we want to do, but I'm happy with the performance.
All right, so talk to me about.
I showed a lot.
You certainly did, which I want to get to, but let's talk about the strategy ahead of time. What was it?
The strategy was definitely to use our movement, use our range, and just outmove her, and obviously not get hit with the strikes that we got hit with, and to wait on her for the counters, but also just go out there and be myself.
Now, the counters were working a lot better in the second round, which we'll talk about. Why was she having some success in the first? When you diagnosed the fight, what do you attribute to her landing a little bit and, of course, dropping you once?
Well, one, she's a great fighter. She's solid. And then two is I didn't feel like myself quite until the second round. And I don't know if that was more so that I was giving her more respect, or a lot more of the respect than I have in the past for other opponents. But I definitely was a little more cautious. So I knew that she could hit, and I just didn't quite find my rhythm yet. And she was having more success than I was, for sure. And I also was I was in southpaw, which all through camp, I felt fantastic, felt great in the southpaw stance, and I didn't feel very good in the orthodox stance. And then when we switched rounds, I ended up going to the orthodox stance, and I felt way better, even though through the entire camp, I didn't see myself fighting this fight in an orthodox stance.
That's interesting. So when you got knocked down, what went through your head?
I didn't feel like it was over, and I've never had that happen to me, really. I've had a few girls catch me where I was off balance, and that's because I throw a lot of naked kicks, and that's something that we have to continue to fix, and that's a bad habit that I have had in the past fights, and these girls are getting my number on that, so I definitely had to fix that. But some people were like, oh, well, she just caught you off balance or whatever. But I don't remember necessarily with the emotion that I had, other than it's not over. I didn't feel like it's over, and I'm not going to quit. I just felt like I had to get back up, and I was surprised. If I was in her position, I probably would have put a little more pressure on it and not let me get back up quite like she did. But I'm glad she let me get back up, or I continued to try to fight to get back up, as long as I didn't take any shots on the way up.
What did your coach Mark Montoya say to you between rounds?
Those guys are just telling me throw your hands before your kicks. Mark wanted me to lead with the hands, not with the feet. And that was what they were all telling me. He's like, you gotta set up your hands to your kicks and blend those to your kicks. And then he also wanted me to set up the takedown. And I was a little confused at first. I was like, oh, okay, I'll get that. And but I more so heard them during the fight in a subconscious. When they said to switch to southpaw, because once I switched from southpaw to orthodox, they're like, keep it up, keep it up, keep it up. And then they told me to pressure. And I don't know if I necessarily heard them and was like, okay, that's what I need to do. But it was kind of like a subconscious, I felt them say that. And that's what we did.
So the second round comes out, went a lot better for you. Here's what I noticed. Number one, the resiliency in the first round, which is an important test for a young fighter. Second round, the accuracy was good. But here's what I noticed between you and her. Looked to me like there was a pretty clear power differential in your favor. You seem to just hit a lot harder.
I definitely hit a lot harder. She's accurate with her strikes, but she's not the hardest hitter I've ever been hit by. Hannah Cyphers by far is the hardest girl I've ever been hit by, but I hit way harder than all of those girls, all of them, hands down. I know my power. I know the power I possess, and I definitely have it.
Yeah. So once you stung her, man, the fight just collapsed so quickly.
I still let them hands go.
Right. And you were winging you were doing that bit where the shot was coming and you could see the whole torso follow along, like you were torquing into that thing. How when you landed that one shot where she kind of stumbled and covered, did you know it was over at that point?
Well, as soon as I landed that first cross, and she kind of started to back up. And then right before she clinched up with me, I knew that was the one. And I knew that her reaction was going to be to try to tie up with me. And that's also another tell that they're hurt. You know, when someone tries to tie up with their opponent, you know they're hurt because that's like the safety. I need to get to safety so I can let my brain recover. But yeah, as soon as I hit her with that one, I'm like, oh, it's over. But as soon as I connected that one, that's a good feeling because you can just feel it, you know. And yeah, it was over from there.
So did you hit her in the eye? I went back and I watched the fight today and prepped for this interview. It looked like there was one shot along the fence line that's when she covered up and then stopped reacting. Do you know what punch? What was that?
I know there was two that landed really solid. It was my right hand. I doubled it up, so I hit with almost like a hook, and I threw it straight right after that. And both of those landed first, and then she covered her face, and then that knee came up.
Right.
And I don't know if I landed that knee. I didn't feel like I landed it. I didn't even know I threw it. Everyone's like, you threw that knee. It was brutal. And I'm like, I watched it back a couple of times. I didn't see it that it landed that hard. But those two hands, that right hand that I doubled up definitely hit. And then those hooks, just the repetitive ones at the end continued, you know, that's what stopped it. Because as soon as like the ref starts to come in, I feel like it's less about the power shots and more just about like keep ripping them as fast as you can and as hard as you can, because you don't want to take too much time in between because it looks a little bit less, I guess, damaging.
Yeah, well, Keith Peterson, she wasn't reacting. So I mean, Keith Peterson had little choice at that point. You know what I mean? So if I had to ask you what test you passed with this fight, what would you say?
Definitely I passed the test of, you know, if I can come back from losing a round, because I think that's the first round I've ever lost in a fight. It was the first round of that fight, and I knew I lost it, but it wasn't like crap. I lost that fight, like I lost that round. I didn't let that emotion get to me. I try to keep a level head. So knowing that I lost the round and I didn't let that get under my skin at even the slightest bit, it didn't change anything in me. You know, I was still going for the finish. I'm still going to go and fight like I'm winning the entire fight. So I feel like I passed that test of, can you come back from a round that you've already lost and not let it get under your skin? And then I also feel like I passed the test of, can she take a hit and get dropped? Not that we want to see that, but can she take a hit, get dropped, and come back from that? You know, because a lot of girls, obviously that wasn't like a terrible, like she got dropped and it was bad. But, you know, it was good to see that I got hit a few times in the head, and I kept coming, and I didn't shy away from punches after that. You know, I didn't feel like I was flinching a lot. But it looked like I was flinching because I remember hearing her corner say, oh, she's biting on it. She's biting on it. She's biting on it. And I knew that they were saying that because I wasn't necessarily biting on it. I was just more so, you know, she would faint and then I would faint, and then she would faint and then I would faint. And I was more so trying to get her to throw that hand so that I could counter off of it. But it was a little bit of a back and forth, but definitely the resilience, like you said, and the keeping the level head in the fight.
You know, you made a point to distinguish yourself from Ronda Rousey, which I thought was kind of interesting. You seem to have a real sense about who to model yourself after. So, for example, you have said you wanted to beat John Jones's record to become the youngest champion, and that you are not, you know, the next Ronda Rousey. So, who is the appropriate model for you? Is it John Jones? Yes, you're trying to beat him, but is that, from a professional standpoint, forget some of the issues he's had, but just the in-cage stuff, the accomplishments, is that who you're modeling yourself after? Like, when you look to somebody for a kind of path, who is it?
Honestly, I don't know if I have a specific one. I couldn't give you an answer because there's so many athletes that their styles are amazing. You know, Demetrius Johnson has a great style. I'll fight anyone, anytime, anywhere from Cowboy. John Jones and his ability to maximize his range and his fight style, and the youngest fighter. Ronda's confidence in herself. Like, there's so many bits and pieces that I study a lot of people, and I don't just study their fighting style. I study their mindset and all of that. And there are good things and there are bad things, and I try to take away from all of them. So if I'm trying to model myself after any of them, it's almost like I'm trying to take a piece from everyone in the sport. I try to take something good.
What is one thing that fighters at your stage of their career get wrong that you know you should not do?
At my stage in their career?
Yeah, so you're 7-0.
I feel like they get a little too excited about the success and about the probably just get caught up in the success and oh, look at me, I'm finally making money, and I'm right on the edge of that. I'm not the kind of person that, as soon as I start making and having more success, that I'm just going to, try to take it and be like, all right, let's go buy a new car. Let's go buy this. And I don't know if that's what every athlete does, but I know that that's what some young people do, especially guys, and they kind of get, caught up in that of like, oh, I need to do this and this and this for the fame or for this. But honestly, I know that the fame is going to come and the success is going to come from there. But the main thing is, taking what I make and taking all my success and returning it. It's putting it back into the bank of, okay, I need to go and elevate this. I need to change this in this training camp. I need to make my camp a little bit smoother, because as good as my camp was, it can be way better than it was. So I feel like I'm almost the extreme opposite of, I don't want to take a time off. I don't want to take a week off. I don't want to go on vacation. I just want to go and I already wrote down notes of, we need to fix this in the camp, we need to talk about this. And just ways to elevate. So I feel like everyone's like, oh, I need a break. They're like, I just spent the entire camp and now I just want to chill and go on vacation. And I feel like that's the thing I'm a little bit different on.
So it's kind of funny because I spoke to Israel Adesanya, right, in 1 year's time. So from like February 11 to the next February 11, the dude had, 5 fights, and he won them all with this crazy level of activity. Is that what you're going for?
Yeah, I feel like the more active you are, the faster the success is going to come. And it also helps you mentally to stay there. When you're consistently in the gym, it's hard to fall off track. When you're around the people that know where you're going. If you have a goal and you set it and you're a motivated person, you can't let yourself get sidetracked and lose focus of what you're trying to go after. And it's a time critical sport. We can't just take these fights and go slow and go slow through our career, because injuries are real. And, if you take a fight and you fight once and then you get injured, well, you can't fight those 5 fights. So as long as you're healthy, I feel like the more you stay consistent fighting, you're just maximizing your time in the ring, because at some point you never know if an injury is going to come up or something's going to come up where you can't fight. So as long as you're healthy, you should just do it.
Do you how much does each fight? You've only had 2 in the UFC now. We had the Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series, but 2 official UFC cards. Yeah, right. So here's the deal: are you feeling the increasing weight of things yet, or are they still relatively? These are still relatively modest growth periods.
No, I don't think I feel like the weight. And if you're meaning pressure, in terms of that, I definitely took a lot more serious. So I took my first fight in the UFC super serious. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like as each one comes, I will get more and more in tune to what I need to do and a little more focused on, okay, I'll put a little bit more, I'm a little less energetic in some areas, or I'll need to breathe a little bit more. But it's mainly because I'm just trying to keep a level head for the fight. I just know, okay, I can't get my nerves up here. I need to get it up here. I can't get my excitement up here. I need to get it up here. I need to save this for this time in place in the camp, and just figuring out the timing of when to let it happen. So I think that's the only thing that I've learned that I need to continue to change as this career goes on.
So 1 year from now, what are we talking about for your career? What will have happened? Imagine this is the next Monday, 1 year from today, right? What's the headline on MMAFighting.com?
Well, 1 year from today, I will be almost 22, and I will definitely be in the area for that title fight, sometime within that year, for sure. So that's something that'll be probably popping up at some point. If not, maybe sooner, maybe not. I'm not trying to rush a title shot at all. I'd like to continue to keep this success, but I still have almost 3 years, and yeah.
Are you looking to fight on International Fight Week? Target me your next position on the calendar.
I am. I would like to fight International Fight Week in July. Now, when that would be, I don't know what part of the week or the opponent. I don't know yet. I just got out here to Vegas, actually. So I got here last night, and I'm going to spend the week out here, talk with everyone, do some medical stuff, and figure it out from there.
With the UFC, the PI, all that stuff?
Yeah. I'm headed there in like 10 minutes.
Well, look at that. No rest for the weary. Well, I tell you what, that was a real important win. Showed a lot of grit, showed a lot of ability, and you're on your way. Congratulations. I can't wait to see what you guys have in store next. Say again?
Thank you so much. I said I appreciate your time. You guys do a great job.
Well, there you go. Thank you, Maycee. Have fun. All right,
Thank
there
you.
she goes. Would we have Kevin Lee on Skype? What do we have him? I think we have him on Skype, right? All right, let's go back. We have everyone on Skype today. I can't believe this. This is to what do I owe the honor? Let's go. This is one of my favorite interviews in the sport, independent of weight class. This guy is jumping up, speaking of weight class, to welterweight. He's going to fight Rafael dos Anjos. Let's go to him now. The Motown Phenom is here. Kevin Lee. Hey, Kevin, how are you?
What's going on, Luke? How you doing, my man?
Good, man. Long time no speak. How have you been since the Iaquinta fight?
Smooth. Everything's starting to fall back into place. It's like the perfect time for me to get ready to go back into a training camp. Everything else in my life outside of it is starting to finally come around. So I'm excited about this one. It was one that I've been kind of like hesitant about moving up to 170, but now seeing like especially how the rest of the division is looking, I'm fucking excited.
All right, so what was the impetus? What finally made you say, you know what, man, F this lightweight nonsense. I'm going to go to welterweight. Was it the opponent, the timing, as you mentioned, some of the other people? Give me the explanation.
Really, honestly, it was the timing. I just wanted to fight. It didn't matter who it was, when it was, what weight class, any of that. I needed to fight. And everybody kept playing games at 155. I kept offering myself to guys that were way lower in the rankings to me, guys that were completely unranked. They approached with the fight, and nobody would accept. So we ended up finding RDA out there. RDA has already fought the who's who of anybody. So he accepted without any hesitation. So I'm like, okay, cool. Anyway, I come in at about 178, 179 on fight weeks, even when I'm cutting down to 155. So I'm excited to see how this weight cut is gonna go and how much different I'm gonna feel stepping into the cage with like a little bit more full energy and full strength.
Let's rewind if we can. Before we talk about the step ahead, I want to talk about the step behind. There were a lot of things that went well for you in the Iaquinta fight. Obviously, it didn't go your way in the end. Looking back on it, how do you feel about it?
I take it as a learning experience. That's all I really can do. I think I still approached that fight pretty wrong. I think there were some things that needed fixing in my corner, especially. I think if the corner worked and in the way I approached, especially those last two rounds, would have been different, then that fight would have been completely different. But I take it as a learning experience. That's really all it is. Especially when against a guy like Al, he's tough. He's gonna keep pushing. The problem is I didn't see him as much of a threat, as big of a threat as I should have, and that's just one thing that you learn through experience in this game, and by continuing to fight and continuing to get these types of opponents. So, overall, I'm not really like happy with it. Obviously, I mean it is what it is. I ain't really even watched the fight since it. I'll probably watch it in a little bit just to get a better understanding of everything, but it is what it is, right?
So you're switching up your corner?
Yeah, I'm removing a guy that I had in before. But mostly we switching up the way that we're gonna approach it in our communication, and just because this is fighting. It's very personal. It's not like it's not like any other sport to me. So when I need to be told certain shit in the corner, especially when the times are real tough, then my corner needs to know, like, go ahead and just tell me. And I'm not one to really like spare feelings anyway. And I feel like they were trying to like kind of playing me a little bit. So sometimes I just need to be told straight, like, hey, look, get your shit together. Like, let's pull this out, and you can bitch and whine about it later. And I felt like, maybe they didn't do that and need to make the adjustments. And it's me too that need to make the adjustments for myself and be able to see those things.
How hard is it to get into that kind of a trust and understanding with a corner where they know what works well for you and what doesn't?
I mean, it takes years, and it's because you have so many guys in the corner too. It's about how each of their energy feeds off of each other. So it takes a long time to get that bond and that relationship going, and that many fights. And sometimes you just got to go through those little hiccups here and there. But you learn from it. You get better as a even though this is totally individual, it's still kind of a team sport, and it's still kind of we all kind of learn at the same time. So it takes years, and that's just what it is. That's just the game. I'm still real young in the sport. I'm still learning a lot about it. I feel like going up to 170 is going to be huge in me, and keeping that same energy in those last couple rounds, and then keeping my mind completely clear. So we'll see how this whole thing shake out.
170 is in a bit of a shakeup scenario, right? Because you just saw what Jorge Masvidal did. You just saw what Pettis did. The champ just lost. The whole thing is being shaken up. Is that part of the reason why it's like double dutch? You ever seen the girls do double dutch and they got the ropes going and you got to find your time and you just got to get in there at the right moment,
Yeah, I mean, I even was kind of looking at it. I approached this fight before any of that even happened. And 170, I was like, okay, yeah, sure, I'm gonna go up and just kind of do my thing because I wanted to fight anyway. And then I was gonna kind of see how it was gonna go. The thing that always kind of made me hesitant about moving to 170 is 155 had the bigger fights. Khabib was out there, and that was kind of the fight that I really was pushing for. But when Usman beat Woodley, that kind of shook everything up. So, I'm only focused on one man at a time. RDA is really somebody that I can't look through. He's somebody that is definitely going to get my full attention. But after this fight, it's giving me a little bit of excitement. It's giving me a little bit of pep in my step in the morning. I'm like, okay, well, we got some fresh blood in here. So I'm here to shake things. I'm here to shake shit up even a little bit more.
Okay, so there's a few questions here about welterweight. First of all, what is your walking around weight? Like today, what are you?
I'm about 181. So, normally this is, I used to get much heavier, but I've been about 180, 181 for the past year and a half there.
All right. So you'll be, fair to say you'll be on the smaller end of welterweight.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at other guys, maybe, but, Pettis just showed too this last Saturday. Sometimes that size really don't matter. Especially when you talk about speed and durability. That size necessarily. I mean, I feel like I can out technique a lot of these guys. When I see even a lot of their wrestling at 170, it's like a lot of it's very basic. So I feel like technique, speed, and durability will outlast the strength. I mean, I'll let you know after May 18th exactly how it all go down. I'm kind of figuring the shit out with you.
Here's what's weird about this whole thing. Did you watch the Garcia Spence boxing match?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, he killed him.
So I'm watching that. You got Mikey Garcia, who is a hell of a boxer and an amazing technician. And okay, Spence might just be one of the best boxers we have right now, but there was such a clear difference in power. Now, you do see fighters like Pacquiao who collect a bunch of weight belts, or Mayweather, but those are like all-time greats. It seems to me in MMA, man, you can jump up 15 pounds and make a splash pretty quickly. Why is that?
I think it's just because there's so much other things in it. It's more of a complete art, whereas boxing is it's a science. So there was no way that there's only so many places that you can go in boxing. Mikey Garcia tried to fight him on the outside, was getting killed just because Spence was so much longer, and he's throwing such straight punches and knew how to move in and out so well. But then he was killing him on the inside too. And really in boxing, you really only got 3-4 areas that you could fight a guy in, and Spence just outclassed him in every one of those areas. Whereas opposed to MMA, I mean, you can fight a guy in 12, 13 different areas maybe. So I think that might be the difference. And smaller guys, I think have more, we spend more time on the technique, and because you kind of have to, you're going against heavier guys, you're going against guys where you got to use the leverage and you got to use the technique behind it. Whereas maybe bigger guys, I don't know. I mean, in that fight in particular, I mean, Garcia just didn't stand a chance. He was getting outclassed from start to finish. But in MMA, that would have been a different show. It would have been, Garcia could have had a couple more weapons to use to where some of the middle rounds, okay, this ain't working, we can go to something else. So, you know, I think that's where the biggest difference. I think that's why MMA is a little bit more exciting too.
That's actually a pretty good explanation. All right, so let me ask you some other things. You know, I have been watching your career for a long time at this point, and I can't quite tell what posture mentally you have to adopt for success. Because sometimes I see you come out super aggro, F this, F that, and you go and just dominate a guy, right? But then other times I see you adopt that posture and it doesn't go so great. And then sometimes I see you take a humility and then you go and dominate. Have you figured out where you need to be in a competitive mind space to be your best?
Yeah. I mean, I see the same thing that you're saying. So I don't know. You know, I kind of just go with the wind, and I kind of you know, I listen to the universe, and I just go wherever it tell me to go. And I feel like, you know, even when I lose, I still win. So I really don't, you know, it don't be no skin off my teeth, really. I think that's just kind of what life is. It's you know, I change from fight to fight. Each fight is completely different. But then I feel like I change day to day too, in my approach to certain things. And I just kind of go with it. I'm not one necessarily to kind of hide that fact and to kind of hide from what I see as the truth. So I just go out and, you know, and I don't know, if I feel like talking some shit today, then I'm gonna talk some shit. If I don't, then I'm not. And I don't really like, you know, I think people have a different idea that I like playing these things, or I'm thinking about it, or I'm sitting through, and like, no, I'm just kind of go with how I feel, and I'm gonna take whatever energy that other people give me. So I'm gonna take whatever energy the RDA is gonna give me. We going on the on sale. I'm leaving here from Michigan over to New York on Thursday for the on sale. So I'm gonna see RDA there. I'm gonna see what type of energy he give me. If he give me some, you know, if he give me something to play with, then we can play. If he want to be cool and be, you know, we can play that role too. We can play the humble, cool role too. So I don't know. We'll see.
Let's talk about RDA as a competitor.
And then we'll see how that folds over into the fight.
Sure. Let's talk about him as a competitor here for a second. He's a guy who, man, he is, you know, he's had some ups, had some downs, but he has fought the toughest of the tough, and can kind of do it all. But you saw in the Usman fight. Now, Usman is a monster welterweight. Okay. But there have been some wrestling shortcomings. I'm wondering if you have identified those as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a couple things. You know, I've been watching a lot of film on him. He's got a lot of film out there. He's got a lot of fights, especially in the UFC. So I, you know, breaking down the film with him has been fun. There's a couple things in there that I see as being some places that I can take advantage. But I'm definitely not. I mean, RDA can't be somebody that you underestimate. You know, he's fought way bigger guys. He's fought smaller guys. He's fought a lot of southpaws, a lot of orthodox guys. He's fought a lot of people, and is never out of a fight. You know, nobody's ever, even in the fight with Usman, you know, RDA had a couple moments in there to where he's not going to get completely dominated. So a fight like this really kind of get me up. I think these are the type of fights that I love, that, you know, are the biggest challenges. You know, you speak on the Iaquinta fight, and just to go back, and I'm like, I didn't see him as that big of a threat to me, but RDA is. You know, RDA is somebody, if you give him the moment, it don't matter if he's lost 3-4 in a row, he'll come out and he'll put your lights out. So, you know, I got to make sure I'm on my P's and Q's the entire time, and that kind of excites me a little bit. So, him competitor wise, RDA is definitely up there with the top. I mean, he's ranked in the top 5 of 2 different weight classes for a reason.
Have you given up hope on 165 happening anytime soon?
Yeah, man, I don't know. I'm gonna let them. You know, Askren is out there doing my dirty work for me now, so I'm gonna let Askren see if he can get in Dana's head a little bit and keep making some noise about it. But you know, I ain't gonna keep beating no dead horse. And just know when it comes, it's not even a matter of if, it's a matter of when it comes. Just know I'm in there, and I'm always gonna be the top dog. So I'm gonna let some of these other guys kind of do the chirping.
Yeah, there's a lot of chirping out there. So the good news is you can tag team. They can take over for the moment. Let's talk about lightweight for a second, man. It's, you know, you're going to welterweight, as you mentioned Askren. There's another new addition to the whole situation that's changing things up. But lightweight, man, the top of it's a bit of a mess. We don't really know what's going to happen with Khabib. You got Poirier and Max, which is a great fight, but we don't know what's going to happen with Max at featherweight. And then you got Tony, who obviously is having some legitimate, real life struggles. I don't want to, I want to be respectful of those. It's like, what do you make of the division right now? It's the marquee division, but you can't really showcase really a lot of parts of it.
Yeah, I don't know. A lot of it kind of went stagnant, which is a real shame. Like you said, I mean, it's always been one of the best divisions in the UFC. There's just so many ups and so many questions, and and part of me was like, this is where I said I wanted to be, and this is where I started and where I'm gonna finish, especially with fighting Khabib. But when I looked at it, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to sit around and wait for these other guys to fight and try and, there's too many politics going on. And like you said, Max is now fighting Dustin. Tony's sitting out, which I'm sad about that whole situation. And all these other things, and nobody wants to fight, and guys only want like these certain fights just to push them up. And Connor's kind of calling the shot still. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck all this. I'm mostly worried about me anyway. To me, I'm the top dog. So, it's what's best for my career and going forward. Those fights are still going to be out there. I still am 100% confident I can make 155 again. But we'll see after. I preferred this fight at 170. 155 is, they need to get their shit together. That's all. I think it'll come together towards the end of this year. But I wasn't about to sit around and wait for them.
Would you be willing to go back and forth?
I mean, we'll have to see what this whole how it shake up. You got, like you say, you got Pettis look great, Masvidal look great. You still got Askren out there. You got Ponzinibbio. You got Leon Edwards. And like I said, Usman's now the champ. So Mama Woodley warned him. So I'm here. I'm coming for him. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. It's been nothing but respect between me and Usman, and I kind of want to still, I want to honor that. But as a competitor, I'm probably gonna be on his heels. We'll see. We'll see after this fight.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. How long have you known Kamaru, by the way?
It's been a couple years. There are certain guys that like right out the gate you kind of make notice of, and we kind of both kind of did the double take at each other at the same time. I want to say I met him. I was at his fight with RDA, but I met him maybe like 2 years before that. He's been in and out of training, and I kind of see him through the gyms. And there's just certain guys that you just kind of know as a competitor. You're like, oh, okay, we cool, but okay, I see you. You see me. You got that look like I see you. You see me. So we'll see.
All right, so let's ask about you here one more time. So you got this fight with RDA coming up in May, jumping up a new weight class, coming off of that loss, making some changes in the corner. So are you in a rebound period? Are you in a growth period? Are you in a no label period? When you think about what this next fight is about and what it says about you, what is it?
It's growth. If I had to put those words on it, I would be more likely to say no label, just because it's so hard to get a grip on it. But for me, it's growth, and it's going to be showing regardless of what happens, regardless of how life gonna hit me, I'm gonna keep coming back and I'm gonna get stronger. So that's all that I think that people are really excited to see me fight either way. As soon as this fight was announced, I've got more buzz about this one than any other fight, including the title fight before. So I think, it's about me coming back and just showing, that I'm still out here, that I'm still, still just as strong, even stronger than before. And especially with the right mental space, there's not going to be a man that can stop me. So, I kind of want to do it for everybody else too. I did something a little bit on Instagram. I don't really talk too much on there, but sometimes I kind of want to shed some light on some real issues and some real things. Instagram be so much about putting out there what you want people to see and to make yourself look good and all that. But I've been dealing with some stuff personally with my brother, my youngest brother being in jail. I've got two brothers. I'm out here in Michigan right now. My middle brother, he's getting ready to fight, which I'm super proud of him. He's getting ready to fight on Wednesday, which is gonna put some new life into me. But my youngest is kind of going through those little trials and tribulations. So, I'm gonna make sure that I put on for him, do this fight right, and make sure that everybody see, it's still a really bright future out there no matter what happens.
So just real quickly, did you relocate to Michigan, or are you there just to deal with this particular episode?
No, I'm there just to deal with just to deal with this. I'm only out here for 3 days, and then I'm straight back to Vegas. I just got here yesterday. I leave on Thursday, and then back to Vegas.
Well, you know what? You have made something of yourself, and I know it's just the beginning. There's a lot more ahead, including this Dos Anjos fight. Last question for you. Fighting on streaming service. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's new. I think it's something that was coming. It's something that they should go all the way in on. They're already offering like the pay-per-views. You can only buy them through ESPN Plus. I think you look at like that DAZN, they do it without having to buy the pay-per-view. So they should just go all in on it. I think it'll be a better it'd be better for everybody. It'd be better for us fighters too, because pay-per-view is starting to kind of die off. You really only getting those really, really big pay-per-views. And I feel like, they use those numbers to kind of hold against a guy when it comes time to negotiate. And you're not really seeing our true negotiation power as fighters. Sometimes I feel like they hold that against certain champions who only, you only sell X amount of pay-per-views. But it's like, that's a dying medium. So we can use something like these streaming services and kind of, I think that could be a little better for everybody if they get it right. They just got to get it right. So, I mean, I don't know. That ain't my job. I leave that to them to do. The UFC is great. They do what they do. They've been the top for a very long time for a reason. So, I kind of go with the flow.
All right. Well, I can't wait to see your next fight. This will be May 18th at the Blue Cross Arena in Rochester, New York. Newly minted welterweight, Kevin Lee. Looking forward to seeing him, Mr. Motown Phenom.
Long and strong. You can't wait, boy.
There he goes. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you, sir.
There he goes. One of my favorite interviews. All right, let's go to this gentleman next. Now, do we have him on Skype as well? I can't believe we have everyone on Skype. It's like hitting green lights every time you're driving down the road. You can't believe it. All right, so this gentleman had a great fight at UFC London, but there's a lot of different questions swirling about things that happened before, things that happened afterwards. So we thought we'd get him on to see if we can get some answers to him. We are joined now by Jack Marshman. Let's go to him here on Skype. There he is. Hi. Hey, Jack.
Hello, mate, you right?
Yeah. How are you? Those are some well-coiffed eyebrows.
Yeah, trying to look after them.
All right, man. So let's talk here just a little bit. You may not know much about me, and that's okay if you don't. I also served in the American military. So part of the reason why I wanted to have you on was because I felt like I have always a little bit more of a connection to fighters who either have served or do serve, just to set the context here. So you won at UFC London. You had a great win. You beat John Phillips. It was a close fight in the end, but you certainly won. And then this news broke that you had not told your command that you were leaving to go do it, but you still won. So talk to me. What happened after the fight?
Yeah, it was sort of like that, but a little bit different. My officer in command knew that I was fighting, and he had basically okayed it, but it came from above him that I wasn't allowed to fight, and they basically, the day I was going to fight week on the Tuesday, I had a text message off my RCMO telling me that I wasn't going to be fighting. So I was like, so yeah, sorry about that. Someone trying to ring me. Yeah, so the RCMO told me I wasn't fighting, and I just sort of went with it anyway.
All right, can you put your camera down just a little bit? As good as those eyebrows. There it is. Yeah. All right. Very good. Very good. Okay. So, but when you got back to, are you stationed active duty somewhere? Like, what happened?
Yeah. Well, I'm in Colchester right now on my camp. So, I actually got a disciplinary over fighting on the weekend. So, which is ridiculous, I think.
So, like, did they take your pay? Did they do anything like that?
I got an AGI, which is like a formal warning, and if you get that another one in a year, you can be discharged from the army.
Whoa, and that goes on your.
I'm leaving anyway. I've given my year's notice because on the 4th of November that'll be my 12-year point. So that's me signing off now.
So you decided to leave the military? Are you deciding to get out of the military for what reason?
I want to continue fighting. I've been doing this for like 12 years. I'm fighting at a really high level. I've made it to the UFC. I've just been offered a new contract, and I got really far. But at the minute, my job as a soldier. I'm a professional soldier. I'm not training the same ways as everyone else.
So okay, so you've been doing. You got a record of 23-8. So like, how much do you think? Look, I was in the military too, as I mentioned. There were a lot of great things about it. There were a lot of things I hated about it, if I can just be candid. Only service members really understand that. So I'm sure it's been good for you if you've been there for 12 years, but you're saying it's really impacted your training? Yeah,
of course. That's what I'm saying. It's exactly how you explained it then. It's some really great parts of the Army that, I'll get to train with the boxing team quite a lot, and I'll be working away and stuff like that. But then it's other things where I'll go on a 6 weeks exercise or something, and I won't train for 6 weeks solid, because I'm doing other things. And then obviously the facts of like active tours and stuff. There's like 6-7 months at a time, and you're not getting any training out there, So it's definitely impacted my training.
So in the UK, you can give a notice of a year and then you can get out?
Yeah. So you do a minimum of 3 years, and then after you've done 3 years, at any point then you can sign off, which gives you like a year until you leave. But I wanted to wait for my 12-year point to get my half pension.
Man, they don't do that in the American military. You sign up for 4, bucko, you are in for 4. They don't let you get out after a year. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
Now, what do you do in the military?
I'm a paratrooper, so infantry.
Oh, you're a grunt.
Yeah.
So you jump out of the planes, eh?
Yeah, my first 9 times I ever stepped on a plane, I jumped out, and then the 10th time I got on a plane, I flew to Afghan. So it's some pretty shit plane journeys.
Yeah, you have not had enjoyable plane rides. Now, how many times have you been deployed?
I've done 2 tours of Afghanistan.
How was that?
Yeah, brilliant. It's what we joined for, really. That's. Especially your first tour when you're young, you look forward to it. Then when you obviously got a misses and stuff on my second tour, it's a bit harder then. But yeah, it's what I joined the Army to do, so I love it really.
Now, were you into MMA before you got into the military, or what did it happen while you were in?
No, I'd had a couple of amateur fights just before I joined the Army, and then I just pursued it. I boxed for the Army for a long time. So obviously I was mainly working on my hands then and getting better there, and then all of a sudden MMA started taking off and I started taking more fights and stuff. So it just went from there.
Now, when you fought at London, I guess, which I aired on BT Sport and all that, when you came back, did all of the other service members you work with, were they giving you high five and back slaps?
Yeah, they love it. They've been supporting me for years, as in all the blokes that I work with, they turn up to all my fights all over the country, and they love it. They do it. I got a massive support from the Army.
Here's what's weird. Tim Kennedy, I'm sure you knew who he was when he was fighting here. Yeah. Now he had something called the World Class Athlete Program, but the American Army has a division where they can let you do what you do, and you can go and fight, and you just still represent the military. Does the UK not have anything like that?
Yeah, they do, but as we're stuck in the past, MMA is not a recognized sport in the Army. If I was just doing boxing, as a professional boxer, I'd be on that professional athlete's contract. But MMA is not recognized because they haven't got the like governing bodies and stuff over here the same. So it's really difficult. If in 5 years' time, I'd probably be on that. I'd be on that athlete's program for the rest of my time in the Army, but we just been stuck in the past over here, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So for example, if you were like a super high level boxer, you'd probably be fine.
Yeah. The British Army got a fishing team. You know, it's like any sport you can actually think of, they've got a sports rate, but they haven't got an MMA team, which is ridiculous. You know, it's the fastest growing sport.
That is. Have you ever talked to like any of your central command about establishing something?
Yeah, I've tried, and there's been talks about it, and they come back with these like a crazy rule set of MMA, which is like ridiculous. It's like, you know, basically like some taekwondo show. It's like you know, like I said, it's a bunch of old guys that don't fully understand the new sport coming through. Like I said, they got a team for everything you can think of in the army, and they support them. We got like I'm in the 3rd Battalion Parachute Regiment. We've got Olympic bobslayers and stuff like that in our battalions, and they're all fine. But you know, fighting in the UFC for them don't mean nothing.
That's crazy. By the way, what is the relationship? I don't know what's up with this connection. You still there, Jack? Did we lose him? He froze. Oh, the magic. Oh, I knew we were going to have one of these. I knew. It was inevitable. We're going to try calling back one more time. I had a couple more questions for him. Dude, that is terrible. Think about that, man. The United States Army, they're the people who established, obviously, Army combatives. Brian Stan, you can ask him about it. I trained a little bit, too. The Marine Corps Martial Arts program, it's not nearly as good as Army combatives. Army combatives is much more hierarchical, and there's a real curriculum to it. Marine Corps Martial Arts program is just a bunch of grunts, fist fighting in the backyard, but well, it's a little more than that, but you know, it's not as developed a program. But the point being is, if you were a high level, you know, UFC level fighter in either of those services, chances are you would probably get some kind of accommodation for it. Now, there's no guarantee. Tim Kennedy was Special Forces level, so he gets obviously a lot of extra consideration that the average grunt might not. But if you're a paratrooper, like that's pretty good, man. That's pretty high level. So, dagger, man, that is really unfortunate. So now he has to be in a position where he has to like jettison an MMA career or fight. All right, let's get him back one more time. I got a couple more questions for him. Jack, you there, bud?
Yeah.
There he is. Sorry about that. Just a couple more questions for it. I appreciate your time. Did you see this? Did you see this note that Darren Till put out on social media about you?
Yeah, I seen it on that during fight week.
What did you make of it?
Yeah, it was just really respectful, because I think, you know, all fighters understand what fighters go through, don't they? So it's just, I really appreciate him going out of his way to do it. It's not, he didn't have to, did he? But I think he fully understands what we go through. So
right on. All right, I'll end on this one. So you're in the Army, right? The British Army?
Yeah.
So how much better are the Royal Marines than the British Army?
That'd be ridiculous. How many British Marines in UFC? I think.
Yeah. Oh, there was one. There was one. There was one.
Who?
He's no longer in there, but he did come through. The bald guy, I forget his name.
Martin Stapleton.
Maybe that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, but he only got on the fight now.
Yeah, maybe so.
He only got on the fight, so I'm just saying he's only one part of made it now. So.
Well, look, you're a credit to the military. You're a credit to MMA. I'm sorry for some of the troubles you've gone through, but you know, you're doing great things one way or the other, and we really appreciate your time, Jack.
Thank you very much, Dave. I really appreciate it.
There he is.
Thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir. I would say Semper Fi, but he's Army, so I'll just say, what do they say in the Army? Hula? They say other made-up words, something like that. But that sucks, man. You be in a position like that where, you know, you got to make a choice between things you love. 12 years in the military and walking away. It's a long time, man. It's a long time. Not very fair, unfortunately. All right, so here's what we're going to do in just a second. Not boys in the back, don't hit it just yet. We're going to do the Monday Morning Analyst. So I'm actually pretty happy with this one. It turned out, usually I like starting the show with them, but we couldn't. But I went back and I looked at a bunch of stuff, including I told Stephen Wonderboy Thompson this. I went back and looked at every time he was knocked down. And a knockdown is not the same as a knockout. He's only got the one knockout. But I went and I looked at all of them and all the conditions under which they happened and to see if there was any similarities across them. And there are. There actually are. So when folks were asking about, you know, what explains that punch, yes, I mean, the element of surprise is a big one, of course, but there is something more to that, actually, that I think I found in the evidence. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you how Pettis won, independent of just the punch itself, some of the other things he was doing to establish some effective conditions. And then I'm going to see if there's something about that Wonder Boy fight, or the knockdowns, that tell us maybe just a little bit more than that. So, with that being said, it is time now for the Monday Morning Analyst. All right, donks, here we are. Time for the Monday Morning Analyst as I untuck my shirt that had been shoved into my pants irresponsibly. All right, so as I mentioned before, if I went back and I was just like, hey, usually what I like to do is like to look at a fight and then discover patterns and then explain to you how somebody won. But I don't know that I can really do that this time, right? Because the win came out of nowhere. It was partly set up by some of the other things he was doing, that being Anthony Pettis. But I thought that would be really unsatisfying. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to look at some ways that Pettis was able to achieve victory. Yes, the ending is the most important part, but some other things that maybe he was doing that I thought were kind of interesting. And then I want to look at some of the ways in which Wonder Boy, who is known as this guy who ducks and dodges for very good reason, he has been hit a few times in fights. I went and I looked at all the times he's been knocked down inside the UFC, and then this one time. Is there any common thread? Yes, there are. There are many common threads. I think I've put them all together. Okay, let's go to the slides if we can here. Here we are. Here's how Showtime bested Wonder Boy. Now, let me have a mea culpa. Last week, I think I had the Jorge Masvidal's Mastery, and I misspelled Mastery. I had like 2 Y's in it. Kids, get some sleep. Because if you're like me and you sleep about 2-3 hours a night before one of these shows, you can't even spell Mastery right. So I apologize to everyone for being a world-class dumbass. All right, but that is now passed. I got 4 hours of sleep last night, so I'm feeling better. Okay, so this is just about the fight itself. I'm not going to go through all that stuff in terms of the visual evidence, just sort of listing these things. But let me put this up just a little bit. How did this gentleman get it done? Number one, no cage cutting. A lot of times when guys are facing off striking, if I have center position and you're on the outside, I want to corral so that you can't go around, that I keep you in front of me and I limit your options. I noticed he didn't do that. Now, that could have been an error because most of the time they tell you definitely want to. In fact, Tyron Woodley, when he fought Wonder Boy both times, he made it a point to, in fact, cage cut. But here's what I noticed. By not trying to corral, he wasn't wasting energy. I think a lot of times these guys try to corral Wonder Boy, and they end up getting lit up because he'll go this way and fake, they'll follow, and he'll either get out of the way, or he'll fake, they'll commit, and then he'll crack them as they come into the punch. So rather than doing that, he just chased Wonder Boy. But what would be the advantage there? The advantage would be with a high shell, which we'll talk about in a second, he's able to push into him all the time, constantly getting Wonder Boy to back up. So rather than trying to waste energy corralling where you can be countered and it wouldn't be that effective because this guy can go lateral movement really well, just chase him. But just make sure he's always on the back foot, always on the back foot. Maybe that was a mistake, but that seems to me like for a striker like Anthony Pettis, that does not seem accidental. That seems quite intentional. Number two, forward pressure defensive shell. You guys saw this. So there was no cage cutting. He was walking right into him. Now, he was trying to turn angles on him. He wasn't trying to just drive straight, but he was generally coming forward, pushing back Wonder Boy, and then he had this tight defensive shell. Why is that? Because you're not going to be able to anticipate some of his counters. On top of that, you'll see this later, Wonder Boy does throw hooks, but his leg kicks, his kicks tend to be very varied. His punches tend to be a little more linear. He throws a lot of jabs and crosses. He doesn't throw a lot of upper hooks, and he doesn't throw a lot of hooks generally, or uppercuts and then hooks. He doesn't throw a lot of those. He throws them sometimes, but they're not a big part of his game. He's a lot of linear punches, right? So if you have this forward shell, you can parry, and then you can just absorb, and you can work sort of in this space. Plus, your hands are up. If your hands are up here, not only can you parry and block, Wonder Boy likes to be here and then come up from the hip a little bit. But for Anthony Pettis, if your hands are here, pop, pop. You can just, if you have a shorter line to travel, and then you can get right back to defensive sensibility. So that puts you in a position to make quick contact, get back, and then get right back to your defense. So you pop. So if you have the jab, it's you pop and then coming right back, right? Pop, pop, back, back. I mean, you're not, you're coming. You're in a position where short contact, defense still in place. That's what he was doing there with that. So and you saw him. He caught a lot of stuff off the front of his arms. He parried a lot of stuff. Yes, he got hit a lot too, but that's going to happen when you have that kind of a style. That really kept him, I'm not going to say safe, but as safe as you could be given the circumstances, right? Number 3, completely changed targeting. Put the thumbnail up for a second, please. I got to show you guys this. I went and I verified it. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, but it really is true. Okay, go back for a second. Look at this. Let me blow this up here for a second. So, in the blue is Pettis. In the red is Thompson. Look at these numbers, man. This shocked me. I couldn't believe this. Here we go. See that 15%? That is how often, I'll blow it up even more if I can. See that 15%? That is how often Pettis targeted Wonderboy's head. 15% is the lowest of any Zuffa fight Anthony Pettis has ever been in. He's never targeted the head of an opponent less. Look at this number 62, leg attacks. That is the most he has ever targeted the legs as a percentage of the attack of any Zuffa fight. This is totally outside of his comfort zone. I've seen situations where this number was 0, and I've seen situations where this number was 100. He can distribute a little bit more. He's had, I think, the Jeremy Stevens fight, he was around like 40 or 50%, right? So he can vary it up. But to go this disparate is totally crazy. So let's go back here a second. Right here. Completely changed targeting. That is not typically how he fights. I wouldn't call him a headhunter, although he does prefer to attack the head, particularly in MMA. He is a kicker, so he does kick to the body. You've seen the kick to the head of Joe Lauzon, but he had to completely invert his style of attack. He did not really try to headhunt Wonderboy. That's how a lot of guys get countered when they headhunt him. If you're reaching for his head, particularly if there's a height differential, that's when he backs up and then pops you. He does it all the time. He'll pop you and then change angles, so you're coming by him like Wile E. Coyote, and he just tears you up. He really tried to avoid that. So what he did was, I knew I don't want to headhunt because that's how I'm not going to reach him because he'll lean. B, if I make contact, I might get countered. So what did he do? Every time he was going away, he was slamming into his legs. And he was doing that old Rob Kaman where the one leg goes across both thighs at once kind of bit, which is just a horrible feeling. If you ever had someone who's good at leg kicking do that to you. It's one thing to take it on the shin or the side of the meat, and then even the calf. Actually, I've never taken a calf kick, but they look pretty painful. But I have had it where they go across both your thighs. Bro, that is terrible. That is a terrible feeling. So he was doing that. So where is he putting all the attacks? Here and down, like from the rib cage and down. That's where all the attacks were going. I think that contributed in the end a little bit to some of the surprise that ultimately took over Wonderboy. 4, respond to offense immediately. You guys saw this all the time. Wonderboy would kick, he would respond. Or Wonderboy would throw a punch, he would try and counter. Always trying to be in there. And in fact, if you go to the numbers here, that is high for him. That's 58% for Anthony Pettis. That's about 10% above normal. And if you look at I have the 2 round breakdowns. Yeah, so you have here 48% and 66%. 48 is right in line with how he normally competes. 66 is well above average for him. So he was in there trying to make contact at all times. And in terms of accuracy, he was a little bit behind because Wonderboy was, really putting it on him in the second in terms of overall volume, but he wasn't that far behind in the first. He was trying to keep pace with him, never letting that volume accumulate, because I think as that volume begins to accumulate, you begin to make some bad decisions, and I think he really wanted to avoid that. And then last, finish with the element of surprise. So that is where the rest of this story comes in. So you see the numbers here. That takes us to this. Okay. This is the element of surprise. So and we're going to look at the finish here in just a second, But I thought to myself, if I just went over that, what is it in the end? It is a well-timed Superman punch from the right side. Leg comes up, you cork it back, and then you throw. Typically, it's a bit of a linear punch, as you'll see. This one kind of comes over the top, and there's an ever so slight delay. But I thought to myself, how is it this guy could never get knocked out and have this many fights? Surely there have been times where he's been knocked down. So I went to Fight Metric, and I found every round where he's been knocked down. He got knocked down, depends how you want to count it. He got knocked down in both Woodley fights. He got knocked down in the Ellenberger fight. He got knocked down in the Till fight. Here is what those show us. Number one, if you can collapse the distance on him quickly, it puts you in position to land a big shot. There's different ways guys do this. One is that they'll stutter step their way in. Sometimes they run in. They often get countered when they run in. But what you often notice is this quick pocket collapse. Guys don't like slowly inch their way in, punch, circle back out, come around, they're blitzing right into him, man. And, sometimes they set it up better than other ones, but you got to take away that distance fast. Why? Because he relies on getting that space all the time. So if you can switch it up on him where now you're the one moving into him quickly rather than him moving away quickly, obviously easier said than done, but that's a big component. Number two, take advantage of the fence line or his forward pressure. Number one, this doesn't work for Pettis necessarily, but for Woodley, it was pretty great. Woodley did try to cage cut. Put him on the fence line. He gets tall because your behavior changes when you get put up against the fence line. We've talked about on this program before. And then number two, his forward pressure. So sometimes he sees you coming and he'll try and pop you. And sometimes he'll pop you at an angle. That's the safest way to do it. Sometimes if you have this style where it's all about timing and precision and accuracy and reading the moment, and you can just pop guys coming in, if you land, it's great. But sometimes you're probably not going to land, or you might land halfway and now you're stuck in position. That's when you have to take advantage of that. That's when the distance has been collapsed, yeah? Number three, circle around his straight punch. He throws a lot of linear shots. On virtually all of these, you're gonna see Wonder Boy throw a shot. These guys are gonna slip, and then they're gonna come over the top with their own punch. It happens over and over and over and over again. Also, what does this tell you? He's never been knocked out with a head kick. He's never been knocked out with a kick to the face. He's never been knocked out with a flying knee. Nothing. It is boxing. That's where the distance comes in. You got to put hands on him. That's why that strategy that Pettis had was kind of interesting, because the way to finish this guy and to really do damage to him, you got to lay these on him. Now, maybe he was chipping away at him the whole time so that he could slow him down and take advantage of him later, which we'll talk about. But if you really want to put him away, you can invest kicks to the body and you can invest leg kicks. In the end, the best damage comes from one of these against him, which means you got to be in that position, in that range for that to happen. Lastly, counterattack off of or use Thompson's commitment. It's one to get his pressure. Sometimes he'll move into you physically and not throw. Sometimes he'll have to move into you physically to throw. Those two are kind of connected. In other words, if he is moving into you, take advantage of it, even if it's just a position change. If he's moving into you to throw, take advantage of it. Either way, you're getting rid of that distance, yeah? So here's proof of what I'm telling you. And by the way, I mentioned this before, as I always do. This is not the best analysis. This is not the only analysis. This is not complete analysis. This is my analysis, but I believe I'm going to make an argument for it with evidence. I encourage you to go and check out what everyone else has to say who also does this kind of thing. All right, so here's the Ellenberger one. I had forgotten Ellenberger even knocked him down. So here's Ellenberger coming into him. Now, by the way, he gets hit more often when both fighters are in orthodox stances. He does get hit when they're in opposite stances, but a little bit less. It's when he goes from southpaw to then orthodox that the other orthodox fighters find a moment to hit him. But here he is, right? He's going to switch to southpaw. Now watch Ellenberger, what he does here. Ellenberger's trying to take the angle, and then he takes it away from him. When I say the angle, I mean the lead foot angle, right? Now watch this. He's going to line up that left hand. Wonder Boy is. Now watch. He's going to fade. Now watch Ellenberger. Drives into him. See that? He double jabs into him. Ready? 1, 2. And Woodley, what am I saying, Woodley? Wonder Boy tries to greet him. And it lands, but not enough. So here's the problem. He takes it, resets for a moment. Now look where they are physically. Look how far apart they were here. So far apart. Nothing's going to land here. But if you can jam your way inside, you might eat one. But now when he resets position, because he is backed up where? Whoop, whoop. He is here. That is the danger zone. This is the warning track. Yeah? Now he's much closer to him. So as a consequence, there's your straight punch. Ellenberger gets out of the way and hooks a punch on top. What do you think happens next? Let's go to the next one. By the way, he got up and won the fight. I mean, don't misunderstand me. But there you go. All right. This is the first Woodley fight, not the second. This is the first one, I believe. Yeah, because their shorts are all Reebocked bad. So this one actually, you'll have to get the thumbnail ready for just a second. So what you're going to see here is he's going to actually, so he's pushing Woodley, right? He's coming into him. Woodley's absorbing it, waiting for his moment. But, you know, Wonder Boy's going to have his too. Throws one, kind of connects, and then he swarms him. Woodley tries to clinch. All right, now put the thumbnail up. Now Woodley's going to go after him. Let me get this ready. All right, here we go. Put it back up. So Woodley is out here a little bit, right? Here's where they are. So almost boxing range. You could maybe lean and get him, but it's a little bit too far. So he steps laterally and then kind of, you can see him range finding a little bit here. He's just he kind of fake half double jabs his way inside and then tries to parry any shot that's there and then throw a right. At the same time, Wonder Boy tries to greet him. That's the peril of that style. If you can use that style to meet someone coming in and you can get away or angle out, man, you're going to tear people up. But that's got to be really precise all the time. Not a lot of room for error. So in this case, he gets popped and then dropped. Fight Metric does not count this as the drop. They count this as the drop, it turns out. Now look where they are. Now look how much closer he is, right? Charge into the guy. So here he throws a right. He tries to chase him around. Now you see how Tyron is cage cutting here? That's something that Pettis did not do. He's going to follow around. He's just, you can see him charging. I mean, it's like a video game, loading that right hand, man. Boom, tries to throw it. Wonder Boy has a hanger, doesn't work. Tries to clip him with the left there, doesn't work. Cage cuts to keep him back against the fence, right? Sort of blitzes him here a little bit. And then I think he drops him just a second. Level changes, can't get him with the left hook. Chases around. Again, look how he's cage cutting. Pettis did the opposite. Pettis would follow him, right? Here we are. So, as this lateral movement happens, Wonder Boy tries to time a shot like that, kind of fakes with the right and then goes with the left. Woodley slips it, boom. So when he commits to you in short range and you can slip and get over the top, again, what do you notice before? It's a straight punch that misses and your hooking punch comes over and scores on him. You got to slip. It's just like the Ellenberger punch. Slip over the top, right? Let's go to the next one. All right, here is the second Woodley-Thompson fight. All right, here he is. Same thing, cage cutting. It was amazing how much more energy he had in this fight than I remembered. Way more, yeah? Here he is. All right, backs off. Let's look at their distance here, right? You're getting pretty close in the punching range. You're a little bit outside of it, but you're pretty close. So he steps in to throw, misses with the linear shot. What do you think is going to happen? Bop. And it drops him. Same thing. So when he comes into you, you have to read he's trying to take advantage of you. He's trying to take advantage of Woodley fading this way, and he wants to greet him with the left, right? Woodley just kind of gets out of the way of it, or he misjudges it, and then he just comes over the top with the right, and it stumbles him backwards, and then he gets up on him here, and he gets up, and then he just stays on him here in close, tight range, boom, and drops him. and he goes down one more time. So let's take a look at the Darren Till contest, because that's another one. Here we are. How does Darren Till drop him? Now, Darren Till was the only southpaw who dropped him. So let's see. Here we are. What does he do? He chases him with the jab, and you see he's cutting a little bit too. He's not doing hardcore cage cutting in this particular scenario, but he's jabbing him backwards. He's jamming into the space. So he's trying to be fleet of foot. Now he's going to get trapped, right? Which is the best place to do your work for the most part against him. He's jabbing into him. So now look where he is. Watch what happens to his posture. He comes straight up, man. He's got that one leg coming out a little bit, but he's backed up so far, and he's also in this corner. So the exiting is going to be a little hard, whether if he was on a lateral, if you're in here, it's harder versus if I'm here. Flat space, corners, right? So here he is. Although I suppose it depends on the fighter a little bit, but in any case. So just watch. So he's got Darren Till, puts that hand out to measure, see where he is, right? You see Thompson tries to counter. And look at Thompson. He has nowhere to really engage. Till slips it, hooks over the top. And what happens? He goes down. It's when you're coming into him, he wants to counter. If you can slip his counter to your pressure, you can slip that and then come over the top. Dude, you can do good work. You can do good work. Easier said than done. Look at how many guys he's knocked out. Look at how many guys he's viciously hurt. Look at how many faces he's bloodied. We're talking about a handful of times over a UFC career. So, you have to be very respectful of his ability. We're just trying to figure out what happened with Anthony Pettis, which brings us to that moment. By the way, he got up, and I thought, by the way, Wonderboy won this fight, but that's just me. So here we are. Knowing all the things that we know, what can we say about this one? Here's what I noticed. So he throws this punch, which kind of lands, right? Boom, a little bit. I mean, kind of grazes, but it's this kick that gets the job done. So he range finds with this hand, puts the kick out, but you notice the kick gets kind of, you see how Pettis parries it? Watch this arm. Parries it. So now you're not even really sideways. Your hips are kind of opened a little bit, just a little bit. But don't pay attention to that. Pay attention to his weight. Look at him now. Right, so here he is. So he's straddling the ESPN logo, yeah? So he comes in, throws the punch, still straddling, measures, moves his back foot now inside the warning track, kicks. Now look where he is. Before you were straddling, now you are inside the warning track. You are much, much closer. You have shortened the distance. On top of that, look what happens to his body when the kick comes down. He has planted his weight. You see that with the leg? He plants his weight. So the kick kind of misses. It opens his hips. He's narrowed the space, and now he's got an angle where that right hand could land on him no problem. It was a bit of a tactical mistake, if you can just be honest about it. It'd be one thing if he threw it, landed, and then got back out, but watch his feet. Watch just Wonderboy's feet. Pop. He can't even get outside the warning track before Pettis lands on him. What did we say before? Quickly collapse. Now, there's no hooking punch for him to throw as he's slipping another one because Wonderboy didn't see it coming. But if you notice, there's a bit of a delay on the timing here. Watch. Ready? It's hard to, you have to watch it in real time. But this lands, he pops, he kind of cocks it, but a Superman punch is when it comes way up and then you throw it, and then as the leg comes back, it comes almost linear, like Superman, flying into you. This one kind of hooks around and lands like just a half second behind when it's supposed to. So the issue here is he has planted his weight as he's gotten closer to him. He's not thrown hardly any punches to the head. The least targeted head of an opponent Anthony Pettis has had in his Zuffa career, including WEC fights. He bounces off the cage to quickly close the distance, and he used the element of surprise here to catch him as he came in too close. So you can pressure him and get him against the fence, or when he pressures you, if you can quickly bounce back, you can get him. Let's look at it from another angle. Boom, and then he throws him here. Here's another angle. Watch this. So here we are, straddling the logo, measures, steps that left foot behind, doesn't really land, and he brings his back down. It's not totally open. His hips aren't exactly open. His shoulders are a little open, but Pettis throws, and you can see this hand kind of comes down. I think he was expecting this to land, the left, but he kind of hooks around the top of the glove. This is what I'm saying when the reaction was delayed. Superman punches are typically straight shots. You can throw a Superman jab, you can throw a Superman hook, you can throw a Superman cross, but most Superman punches are crosses, typically, not always. And here he just throws around the top. You see that? And it's just ever so slightly delayed. And it's because he didn't see it. He wasn't expecting it to come from that angle. We saw last week when Jorge Masvidal threw that left over the top. He had never really thrown it from that stance. He had thrown it from a different one, so it had a slightly different trajectory and look. When he changed the stance and then the way the punch was coming in, it totally confused him. I think it's the exact same thing here. Here's one more look at it real quickly, and then we'll call it a day. Boom. Good job by referee Herb Dean, too, by the way. I mean, getting in there as fast as he can. So here's that kick, kind of slides off of him, and now look how forward his weight is. He's now stuck here. And as he went for like a push kick against a guy who just has a lot of ingenuity about how to use the fence, either to jump off of it or just to bounce your rear end off of it and propel your way forward, which he does. And here's the delayed timing. It just comes just a half second. It's supposed to be like here. And so you can see there's just a little bit of a timing and a trajectory angle change that makes it look like, or made it be so devastating. So put the thumbnail up, please, one more time. Yeah, and then we'll do this, blah, blah, blah. All right, so one more time. One more time. Okay, put that up, please. Not picking on Wonder Boy. He had a tough loss. He was gracious with our time. I'm just trying to be analytical about it, hence the name of the segment. I'm just trying to be analytical and figure out if you take all those knockdowns, which again, we're just talking about a handful of knockdowns over a long UFC career. He's an incredible fighter. He'll be back. It's decorated. I'm just trying to detect patterns. These are the patterns. You got to collapse that distance quickly. A lot of different ways you can do it, but you got to do it. You got to take advantage of the fence line, either pressuring him back and he can't move, or his forward pressure, as you saw in the Pettis case. You have to circle around his straight punch. He's going to try and counter you as you come in. If you can slip it and throw a hooking punch around it, you can do good work. And then 4, you got to counterattack off of use of his own commitment, as we indicated in the first. And then, of course, the numbers speak to this. And this is how Pettis got it done. Unlike Woodley, did not cage cut. Just kind of stuck on him with forward pressure with that defensive shell. Completely changed the targeting. He's totally switched up how he applies attacks in literally historic ways. He's never done this before, ever, in 2 ways, leg attacks and targeting the head. Respond to the offense immediately. He just kind of tried to keep pace with Wonder Boy. He was losing it a little bit, but he was trying. And then finish off with the element of surprise. He was so not targeting the head, and he collapsed that distance so quickly, Wonder Boy just wasn't really ready for it. And that's how you get big wins like that in the sport. Okay, you can put the thumbnail up. I think we're just going to end the show here. So let's do this. Let me just say thank you to everyone who watched today. Listen to the podcast, subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching. Keep sending those tweets using the hashtag #TheMMAHour. Keep calling 844-866-2468. And until next time, stay frosty.